So it's our little secret, right? But you will find this a lot. There's this, oh my God, you know, we're all going to compete with ourselves. We're going to cannibalize what we do. If they get a lot of it over here, they won't want it over here. None of this is the case. Right? And it's been around forever. When the first comedy album, records were done, records, it's a vinyl thing that you hear sound on. When the first guys did, I think Bob Newhart was the first one to do it. I'm not sure, but it was a Bob Newhart era guys. And the first ones were like Newhart and Shelley Berman, David Steinberg, I think. Steinberg does a great series right now on Showtime, by the way, called Inside Comedy. They're interviews, and Steinberg's really smart. If you're interested at all, you should find it and watch it, which you can do on Showtime on demand, I think. You probably get it on your little device. But so those guys, they were the first ones to do comedy records. And the nightclub owners threatened to blackball them. I mean, this was a bit, and everybody was afraid of it. And the nightclub owners went apeshit. Because if people could hear you on records, they're not going to want to come to the club to see you. Of course, we all know now it works exactly the opposite. The stuff they become known for doing. So like Bob Newhart he can't go anywhere and not do the driving instructor routine because everybody yells for him to do the driving instructor. And mostly they know the driving instructor routine by heart. I mean, it's like sing-along with a song. You know, they can do the thing. They still want to see him do it, but people feared this cannibalization of the marketplace. It is almost always unjustified. And if you want a look at how hard it is to saturate, go count in your community how many pizza places there are and how many sub shops there are. I mean, how much pizza will people eat? Apparently, an unlimited amount. They keep dropping pizza places in here and none of them close. I mean, I can't believe it. And sub shops. I mean, I cannot believe it. In one little strip area where I pick up my mail and some of my packages and stuff, we've gone from 1 to 6 in like 2 years. And none of them close. I don't understand it. It's like, how can you not be going bankrupt? I mean, has everybody just stopped eating anything else? But these are categories. Apparently you can't saturate it. So it's usually an unrealistic fear. And the more distribution channels you have, yours or someone else's pipeline, the more pipelines you're in, pretty much the better, particularly if you can all make them back end to you, right? So if you look at, I mean, I've done a lot of stuff myself over the years and I've been in a lot of catalogs, and I've been in a lot of relatively strange catalogs as well as catalogs that made sense. For a number of years, I had a couple of my products in a Miles Kimball catalog, which is like a gift catalog for old people. But we sold magnetic marketing there, and we sold enough of it that they kept it in the catalog for 2 years. It didn't amount to a hill of beans to me directly, but no out-of-pocket, sell product, get money, and potentially get a customer. Why wouldn't you do it? It's like, huh? Why wouldn't we do that? It doesn't make it, yeah, but it only amounts to, 8 a month. So? What? 8 people find their way to our office and batter their way through the door and want to buy magnetic marketing, we're going to shoot them? Hopefully, we're going to go find one for them and take their money. So if somebody else is willing to collect from 8 people and forward the money, why wouldn't we do that, right? So Proactive at Guthrie Ranker, people think of it as a TV product. It hasn't been a TV product for a long period of time. So there is direct response TV. Right now, there's no long-form show on the air. There's only short-form commercials. People think the infomercial's still on the air because they saw it so much. But here's all the places that Proactive is sold. It's sold in newspapers. That's a thing. It's on paper. You probably got one maybe out in the lobby. Newspaper, freestanding inserts, statement stuffers, Huge statement stuffer business. Statement stuffers are them things that are stuffed in with your utility bill statement, your credit card statement, your Orvis credit card statement, whatever kind of statement you get. There's stuffers in there. Okay? Package inserts. Huge. Millions of package inserts every year. So you get a box from something you ordered, and in there, thrown in, usually in an envelope, is a bunch of the same thing as a statement stuffer. Proactive, big in that distribution channel. Radio, does a lot of radio. Satellite and terrestrial, that's the way it's said. A lot of radio. The mall carts that are now being replaced with the vending machines. So how many of you have seen a human-manned cart selling Proactive in a mall? Okay? How many of you have seen the vending machines? Okay? The vending machines are replacing the mall carts, but there's about 1,200 malls across the country that have one or the other. The vending machines work better than the humans, which should be no surprise. The humans are at best erratic. The vending machine is consistent. It comes back to what's an asset and what isn't an asset. See, the humans, even the best ones, are not assets because even the best aren't the best every day. And there's only so many best, and then there's a bunch of okay, and then there's a bunch of crappy, and when there's 1,200 of them, a bunch of them are crappy. The machine is the same every day, every place. It doesn't need Midol. It just, you walk up, it plays the thing, and you put money in and you get a product. Yellow Pages, still using Yellow Pages. They've started to tighten back up, but out of core advertising and out of category in Yellow Pages, we'll talk about it another time. Every online media, because of the teenage component part of that business, they're in every online media, and I didn't list it here, but they're in a bunch of catalogs. So let's take being in catalogs, right? So does the machine in the mall cannibalize the results from the radio commercial and from the website? Yeah, probably. Does the website cannibalize the, yeah, probably. Does being in somebody else's catalog take away a sale you would have got $39 for and you only get $19 for it because it's in somebody else's catalog? Probably. So what? What difference does any of that make? Customer, that's important, right? $500 million a year in revenue, that's important. Cannibalization, not so much. Forcing access to distribution channels. So here's what, so it's easier to get it done at gunpoint than it is any other way. And it's usually faster. Now, there are some long-term relation ramifications you might want to think about, but generally speaking, a gun's a fairly useful thing in gaining the cooperation of people who otherwise might not be cooperative. So, first of all, what DRTV has become is the model for this. So direct response television is now largely about drive to retail. It is about setting up you must stock it because we're on TV with it 6 billion times a day, and people are going to buy it whether they buy it from you or not. So it's really brain dead stupid not to pile up the crinkle up hose and the cat toy and any or all of that other stuff that any as seen on TV marketer will let you have in your store. It's like just stupid because a bunch of your people will go buy it, right? And some people are even going to be frustrated that you don't have it. And so they're going to come to your Walgreens store, Mr. Walgreens, and they're not going to find the magic hose and the cat toy and the copper doohickey for your elbow that Brett Favre talked about on TV, and they're going to go across to CVS. And if CVS has it, not only are they going to buy a bunch of other crap while they're at CVS, but they may discover, holy shit, that CVS store is nicer than the Walgreens store. I'll come to the CVS store next time too. So you better stock the crap or you're going to lose a whole lot of customers. Everybody goes, I got it. Okay, we'll pile it up right over here, put a big as seen TV sign in front of it, and fine, right? So that really is what DRTV is now all about. it is about forcing other distribution channels. Shark Tank is all about forcing distribution. That's what it's about. It's about saying to Bed Bath & Beyond, you got to take it. This is not a choice. This thing's on Shark Tank. 20 million people are going to go try and find it tomorrow. You're going to lose a shitload of money. You're going to, okay. So they're sort of the, DRTV is sort of now the instructive lesson to everybody that distribution can't be forced, often by self-liquidating media, and that you can make an argument that at bare minimum you're an idiot not to play ball with me, and beyond that you're almost certainly going to lose money. So I've used a version of this on a couple of occasions. So I'll tell you an exact one. Okay? So when Health Source was starting to franchise in chiropractic, at the time, a client of mine was a guy by the name of Dr. Ben Altadonna. And Ben is to chiropractors what this Ben is to lawyers, what Donna is to fitness center owners, what Robin is to IT consultants. So Ben had, 3,000 members and 300 people in coaching and so forth, all chiropractors. And I called Ben and I said, I got bad news, good news. What do you want to hear first? Well, give me the bad news. I said, well, really smart client of mine who I'm doing a lot of work with is about to sell conversion franchises to chiropractors. And that's especially bad news because we're going to sell a bunch of them to your customers. Because a buyer is a buyer is a buyer is a buyer. Okay? And you got them because they responded to my kind of lead generation advertising and my kind of marketing, and they came to a seminar I designed for you, and they're going to respond in the exact same way again, and we're going to take a bunch of your customers without even trying. It's not like we're going to come copy down the license plate numbers of the people at your seminar in the parking lot. It's not that. We're just going to get them because that's what they're going to do. The good news is you can have some of the money if you want. The bad news is everyone you help us take from you now is of no use to you afterwards because they don't need a seminar, they don't need coaching, they don't need newsletter, they don't need any of that because that's what they're getting in their franchise. But if you don't get some of the money, we're going to take them anyway, and you're going to get none of the money. So do you want to play in the launch or do you not want to play in the launch? Now, this is not a happy conversation necessarily. It's better, like in this case, with me being the deliverer of the bad news than one person having the conversation with the other, but that can work too. And the truth of the matter is he's better served by getting some of the money than getting none of the money. And so we launched Health Source literally at a Bell Donna seminar. And the first, 20 some odd franchise owners were like, boom, all sucked right out of that room. And when you can launch with 20 all at one time instead of one, and 4 months later another, and 4 months later another, it makes a big difference in that business. And that's all DRTV now does to retail. It's exactly the same sort of conversation. And so one thing to think about is there a distribution channel over here I'd like to be in? And is there a way for me to force it? Is there a way for me to make it a lot uglier for them not to play than it is for them to play? Permission is not always needed. So sometimes you can force it without even telling them you're going to force it. And 2 and 3 both have to do with that. So 2 is just a great story. So when Limbaugh was building up his radio show, he really couldn't get anybody but us as advertisers. So he could only get direct response advertisers. Beck pretty much is still 80% DRTV guys, direct response guys. And so Limbaugh wanted brand advertisers. You get more money from them, they don't track results, they're stupid, yada, yada. Better advertisers. That's why Google wants them and is throwing you out. That's why Facebook wants them and is throwing us out. Because companies that don't track results are much better clients if you have ad media than companies that do. Because they don't know. So, and you can show them a bunch of statistics that don't mean anything, and they're excited. So that's what Limbaugh wanted as advertisers, and he was right. So he picked this obscure regional beverage company called Snapple that hardly anybody ever heard of that he liked. And he didn't tell them. He just started to advertise him. And he started to run commercials, and he started to talk about him, and he started to tell everybody to go get Snapple. And if your grocer doesn't have Snapple, demand that he get it. And before you know it, all across the country, there's crap loads of people going in saying, where's the Snapple? And everybody's going, where's the what? Where's the Snapple? And after this happens 8 or 10 times in 20 supermarkets in a chain, people notice. And they start screaming upstream. Here's what happens. The store managers call the regional guys and go, where the hell's the Snapple? Why don't we have Snapple? I got people coming in here asking for Snapple. We don't have Snapple. Your job is to make sure we got. The guy says, what the hell is Snapple? I don't know. And he calls the vice president. So all the regionals call the vice president screaming, where's the goddamn Snapple? The managers are chewing my ass because we don't have Snapple. Why don't we have Snapple? The guy goes, I don't know what the fuck Snapple is. You know, this Limbaugh guy's advertising. Huh? Right? So now people start calling Snapple, saying, we got 200 stores and we need 8 cases of Snapple at each one, and we need it yesterday because all these people are screaming for Snapple. And Snapple's going, how the hell did that happen? Right? We've been trying to make that happen for a decade, and how could this finally be happening? Well, everybody's hearing it on Limbaugh. So now they all have to have a meeting. Are we advertising on Limbaugh? I don't think so. Do you know? Are we advertising on Limbaugh? And once they all figure out they're not advertising on Limbaugh, somebody picks up the phone and says, what the hell are you doing? He says, I think I'm selling a shitload of Snapple. I think that's what I'm doing. You know? And so Snapple signs on as an advertiser, and as soon as Snapple signs on as an advertiser, a bunch of other brand advertisers sign on as an advertiser. So he forced it. Let's try an analogy. Let's say you put on events and you want a higher level sponsor. Robin teaches get sponsors. And for some reason, you can't get sponsors. Pick a couple and make them sponsors and don't tell them. Drive a bunch of business to them. Same thing's going to happen. Somebody's going to call and say, where are we getting all these clients from? Oh, we put up an exhibit booth for you, and we put a couple people in it, and we drove everybody to your website, and that's what happens at our events. I mean, it's just a big, and then you're going to get them, and then everybody else at their tier is all going to say, holy shit, if those guys are over there, we got to be over there. And before you know it, you got everybody. A version of it is organized shills. So this is of questionable integrity. But it's a very common practice. How many of you know what paint by numbers is? Okay, so paint by numbers wouldn't exist if they hadn't set up a sales test in a big department store and sent in every relative, every friend, every neighbor, everybody they could round up, every homeless person with money to buy paint by numbers. They faked the entire test. And then I think it was Macy's, department store chain, not only wanted to stock it in all the stores, they wanted to feature it in all the stores, and they wanted. So if they did their normal test, they would either have bought a little bit of it and stuck it in a corner somewhere and, let's see if it sells, okay, which is like, let's go find the worst jockey in the world, fat, dumb, blind, deaf, stupid, unsuccessful, and he's missing a hand, and let's put him on American Pharoah and see how he does, right? I mean, so that is the normal marketing test. Or they would have run one test with one promotion in one store, exactly what they did, with no advertising and no marketing, and pretty much nobody would have paid any attention to it. And they would have said, see, we told you, nobody's interested in paint by numbers. Mm-hmm. But the minute they see a bunch of people actually showing up and buying paint by numbers, they put it next weekend in the front of the store with spotlights on it and big signs, and they send an email out to everybody and say, we got paint by numbers, and they promote it, and it takes on a life of its own. Okay? That's why anybody who authors a book, see, you've got to drive a couple thousand anyway in the retail system the first week or two it's out, or you'll be dead. You'll be dead. So they'll sell the one copy they got and they won't reorder. Okay? That is how the retail book business works, by the way. So the average stock of a mid-range author's business book in Barnes & Noble is one copy in each store. So, the good news, you see somebody buying one and you go, oh, great, they're buying. Oh, no, they'll be out of books. I mean, it's like good news, bad news, all like this, you know. We were in Learn It Out, a little independent bookstore, and I forget what the book was now. It's like, I don't know, 526 things for dads to do with their kids or something, you know. And I said to Carla, that will take care of 2 Father's Day gifts. Both of our will like it. Why don't you go? She comes back, she says, they only got one. I said, so did you get it? She said, well, no, I feel bad. If I take it, then the guy will have no book here. I'm going, therein lies the problem, right? So, and he's got to cause like 10 of those to be on back order and ordered and hitting the Amazon numbers real quick, or that thing will be dead in the marketplace. And so a lot of people fake it. They just fake it. You got to have them all shipped to 500 different addresses, and nobody can order more than, but they fake it all. And then it may take on a life of its own. So shills are used a lot. If a product isn't driven into retail by TV, it will often be put in a market test, and let's say 6 Walgreens stores are going to take it. That company will send shills in buying it, as it is first in those Walgreens stores. And if they don't, there's a pretty good chance the thing will be stillborn where it is. So organized shills are very useful. Anytime you see a guy selling at the county fair with the thing around his neck, the slicer dicer guy, believe me, those first 2 buyers are his cousins, okay? They travel with him from there. They're all part of the sales team because the first 2 are the hardest. Then it takes on a life of its own, right? And so you got to think about, is there a way for me to force my way into distribution channels? Let's go to 59. And let's talk a little bit, just a little, about acquisition. And for small business entrepreneurs, acquisition is one of the least used strategies. Big business, it's the most used strategy. So big businesses acquire more than they do anything else. They certainly acquire more than they build. As soon as they have the ability to acquire, they start acquiring more than they build because they're not really very good at building anything. And it's faster to acquire than it is to build. And the ones that acquire right do very well. You see, I mean, if you take the Fortune 1000 and you look at how they've grown and expanded, and you track, say, the last 5 years, you're going to see more growth and more expansion by acquisition than you are by. So Bezos wants robots in his warehouse. He doesn't hire somebody to make robots. He goes and buys a robotics company. That's what big companies do. Disney wants superheroes who are amenable to teenagers. They go buy Marvel. They don't start from scratch, go hire a bunch of writers and artists and create characters and popularize characters. They have the ability to do that. They go buy Marvel. Right? So big business is big on acquisition. Small business is usually not. That's the least used strategy. They don't understand it. They're afraid of it, et cetera, et cetera. So the first thing you should be thinking about is if you have a successful thing, and this is also in context of, which we'll get back to, of turning one customer into 2, if you have a successful thing, then maybe there's another thing that you can get to by buying it rather than creating it that you have some synergy with. You can exploit its assets with your customers. That's the most common thing, is it has products, services, talent, capabilities that you can exploit with your existent customers. In many cases, that literally means you buy it for nothing, right? Because you don't buy it with your money, you buy it with your customer's money. You literally send the bill to the herd, as I say. And usually you could buy it with your customer's money in a relatively short-term time frame. And then you own it, and you own whatever value it had, and you own whatever value it has connected to you, and you got that all purely with money paid by your customers. Sometimes you can divide it before you buy it. So, okay, I'm going to buy this thing, and I'm going to prearrange with Ron that if I get it, I don't really want this part of it, but he'd love to have this part of it, so we'll divide it before I even get it. When Heinz bought Weight Watchers, they hated the core business. Their whole interest was the brand for food products in grocery stores, which is the business Heinz is in. So, and for some reason, they chose not to do a licensing deal. Maybe they couldn't do a licensing deal. I don't know the details. Licensing would have been smarter. But they bought the whole company for that piece. They had sold, before they bought it, the publishing business, because they didn't want to be in the publishing business. They knew they had to keep the Weight Watchers people come to meetings business, or the brand would be destroyed. If the publishing business got destroyed, it wouldn't kill the value of the brand. So they had sold the book publishing business to Meredith, which at the time was owned by Random House, and they had sold the magazine publishing business to Hearst before they bought the company. And it's like, what do you guys call it in real estate? Simultaneous, where you don't take title. It's simultaneous escrow, simultaneous. Okay. Well, we've been hanging around together, so my subconscious has unfortunately absorbed an enormous amount of Ron LeGrand. So they really did the same thing. They did a simultaneous escrow. Right? So sometimes you can divide it before you buy it. Right? You can certainly divide it after you buy it. I buy this. I really only wanted that. I could spin this part out over here, and I could spin this part out over here. And maybe the parts are worth as much as the whole, and you can figure out how to come away. Right? You can apply your assets to it. So do they have customers buying A and B who will buy C and D the minute you connect them? You can apply their assets to you. And if you can buy it with debt, it can service, which is how private equity buys most things. Right? They buy it, then they load it up with debt, and as long as it can service its debt, they basically got it for nothing. And if it appreciates, they make money. If it makes money, they make money. And you can involve your back-end vendors. So I just today, for a client I won't name, but today quickly sketched out the scenario of how that client can go buy this company over here and get a vendor partner to put up all the money. And he can get a free ride. And I would rank it 80% chance of this particular scenario working. Okay? So sometimes your vendor partners will help you buy it. How to buy it free with no money down. Pre-sell something it can make or deliver to your list. And predetermine that money's going to be used for the acquisition. Get the seller to finance it. Provide the seller with an opportunity that's better than money. There's a lot of real estate called don't wanters. There's a lot of don't wanter businesses out there that still have value. The guy just doesn't want them anymore. And he isn't going to get much for it all at one time. You can give him a nice tail by pricing it in to everything you do afterwards, particularly if he's been underpriced. So the margin between where he's been on price and where you know the thing should be on price and where it will be on price when it's hooked to you and hooked to your customers allows you to give them part of that margin forever if you want to. All right? So lots of ways to skin this cat. You have in that Disney report way back at the front, there's a whole thing about acquisitions. There is a Trump rule about this. And the Trump rule is it's perfectly okay to overpay. So people get very hung up on price and value. And as an investor, it's a pretty legitimate hang-up. So, you will see, like if you watch Shark Tank, Kevin's the worst at it, but you will see them immediately go to a formulaic valuing of the company. And in part, it's theater, it's negotiation to diminish, to get more. But mostly they believe it. So they are applying a CPA textbook formula. You do so much revenue, and you're in this industry, and that's a 3.5 multiple on your EBITDA, and are you crazy thinking this thing's worth $10 million when we say it's worth 1.2, right? So as an investor, that has a lot more legitimacy than as an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, it's very handcuffing, right? Because there's a lot of value that you're going to bring to it, that the only way you can collect on that value is by owning it. So overpaying to get it makes perfect sense based on what you know you're going to do to it. So Trump says all of his best deals, real estate or otherwise, he's always, quote, quote, overpaid. He's always paid more than any formulaic valuation would say makes sense. And often, he's already seen a way to take a bunch of money back out of it. The best story in George Ross's book, which if you haven't read it, it's a business book worth reading. I don't remember the title. Does anybody remember the title? Doesn't matter. You can look up George Ross. But the best story is the Mar-a-Lago Resort, which in short was loaded with actual antique furnishings worth a crap load of money. And the first thing Trump did when he got it is he replaced them all with replicas and sold all the furniture and the artwork and the clocks and the knickknacks and everything else. And as I recall the story, he recovered like 50% of his investment just on stripping out all the antiques and putting in replicas, which clearly they could have done themselves, right? Just didn't occur to anybody. Disney has overpaid for Marvel. They overpaid for Pixar. And every time they do it, there's all kinds of negative press for like a month on what idiots they are. And then they get all the money back with like a movie, right? And some stuffed toys in the first month, because Iger knows exactly what that's going to be worth plugged into their whole system. But the only way to harvest that is to have it. So if you got to overpay for it, what difference does that make? It makes none. Then there's how not to buy a business, but get its customers. So let's skip one for a second. Well, I'll just give you a brain dead one. All right. So people always ask me, if you had to start over again today with no money, what would you do? I have a big, long answer for you on modus operandi day. But so what I'm about to describe to you, you could do today. And under the most dire of circumstances, I'd do it today. So in 1978, for my seminar business, I had no money. And generally, when you don't have any money, you have time. An odd irony. Well, it is. I mean, the average billionaire has less free time than the average broke person. He's got lots of free time. He can't do nothing. So he's got all kinds of free time. So I would go to, and there were several close to my apartment, I would go to hotels. I would watch the newspaper for all the ads of people who were doing seminars. And I would go to the hotel parking lot once they had started, and I would go put my little lead generation card under all the windshield wipers. Now, it ain't elegant, by the way, and there's a little waste because there's somebody in the hotel who ain't in their seminar, but at the, God, what was it, West Camelback, the Sahara Hotel, if there was a Get Rich or Real Estate seminar, there, or there was a sales training seminar there, pretty much 290 of the 300 cars in the parking lot were in the seminar. I remember doing it to Hopkins. Tommy had like 500 people one time at the big Marriott in Scottsdale. And, I mean, I saw the newspaper and boy, right? I mean, so my lead generation message is, it doesn't matter how much you learn how to sell if you don't have anybody to sell to. You need lead generation. Free report, call, every windshield wiper, right? All I'm doing is stealing his customers. That's all I'm doing. All right? So he spent a bunch of money to get them all there. All I got to do is run around and not get stopped by the parking lot security guy while I put something under all the windshield wipers. Now, there's more sophisticated ways to do this. You go to Amazon right now, and you can buy advertising above any author you want, including me. And people do. Right? So they go there to search for for Kiyosaki, and they find you because you outbid Kiyosaki for space right there by him. It's the same deal. It's just I did it with little pieces of paper and windshield wipers, and people now are doing it on Amazon with a little bit of money. And often it doesn't take all that much money. Follow the leader with stronger marketing. So this is really appropriate for magazines. But you can do it online. I'm not the one to teach it to you, but there are sites that do nothing but track somebody through every place that they are advertising and tell you every place they are and how much they're spending and how big their ad is and so forth. So when we entered the opportunity field, Jeff Paul and I, George Douglas, who became a friend of mine, George was very successfully running a mediocre ad, generating leads, and he was running it in a lot of places, including out-of-category places you wouldn't expect to find it. I mean, he was in all the opportunity magazines, Entrepreneur, Small Business Opportunities, et cetera, but you would expect to find him there. It's how to make $4,000 a day at home with your computer. Okay? And it was a mediocre ad. I mean, it was a picture of two people in a computer. Headline was how to make $4,000 a month at home with your computer. And there was like 3 sentences a copy, and it was a lead generation message. But in many cases, because he was showing up alone, he was the only one in the media, the ad worked, and they had a high profit margin on the sale and so forth. So they were in all sorts of places you'd never think to look for them, nurses, trade journals, and I mean, they were all hundreds of places. And so our strategy was just to find George. I mean, that was it. So go to the library, go through every magazine on earth, look for George. We know what we're looking for, so I don't have to do it. A relatively skilled, trained monkey can do it. And it's simple. It's $10 for every one you find, so they actually don't skim. They look at every page, and she comes back with a big pile of, here's where George is. Great, here's your money, right? And here's our money, because all we got to do now is advertise where George is, which a much stronger ad, right? And we're going to get the same leads. We're going to peel off the leads he's getting, and we're going to get a bunch of people he doesn't get, because if he's getting some with this mediocre ad, imagine what we'll do with this bigger, stronger, sexier, more clever ad, which is how to make $4,000 a day, $4,000 a month, $4,000 a day. Even an idiot, they might not be able to do the math, but the differential is clear, right? Sitting at home in your underwear, oh, that's better than at your computer. In my underwear, I do that now, right? Guy says, we should have added eating caramel corn, so follow the leader with stronger marketing. So some leader has already figured out where to be. If you find them and follow them and you do bigger, better marketing, that's a way to get their customers without buying their business. Buy a Pied Piper. That may be somebody working for a competitor. A strategy I've used for a number of clients is buying the retired, beloved elder in the niche. The guy doesn't have a business anymore. He couldn't run a business probably if his life depended on it, but He's beloved. Everybody likes him. So, little known story, although it's in a book. You can find it if you want to. So, there was a multi-level marketing company / pyramid company called Holiday Magic. Anybody remember Holiday Magic? Anybody? Couple. There you go. Okay. Anybody in Holiday Magic? Your mother. There you go. Okay. Thanks. Well, Holiday Magic predates me a little too. But so, Holiday Magic was created by a guy by the name of William Penpatrick. Fascinating guy, fascinating company. I won't bore you with the details. Don't matter. But so Holiday Magic was pre Glenn Turner, so it was before Coscott and Dare to Be Great. Okay. And Holiday Magic was a cosmetics company, and they had what Dare to Be Great was to Coscott, Mind Dynamics was to Holiday Magic. So they had a personal development thing, and they had a skincare cosmetics thing, and it basically was a pyramid thing. You bought $5,000 worth of Holiday Magic glop to become a commander, and then you got overrides on everybody who bought $5,000 worth of glop, and they got overrides on everybody who bought $5,000 worth of glop, and the chain continues until somebody goes to jail. Okay, that's the deal. Okay, so Holiday Magic went and bought Napoleon Hill late in life. I'm not telling you a secret. It's just most people don't know it. So Hill was broke and gettable and famous, and certainly famous to the kind of people you would want to sell a network marketing opportunity to. And Penpatrick went and bought them. And there's a book called Succeed and Grow Rich Through Persuasion by Napoleon Hill, which is really, somebody asked me about Tony's book last night at dinner, the new financial advisory book, which is the best piece of financial advice in it would be return this book for a refund. But that book is a disguised sales letter for Advisor Excel annuities. That's what it is. And so Succeed and Grow Rich Through Persuasion by Napoleon Hill is a sales letter for Holiday Magic. That's what it is. If you go get it, it's out of print, I imagine, but you could certainly find it if you made a project out of it. It's a sales letter for William Penpatrick and for Holiday Magic, right? Well, there was a crap load of Think and Grow Rich fans out there. There's still a bunch of Think and Grow Rich fans like now. Guthrie Renker, we capitalized on it in '87 with a TV show. You know, there was a bunch of Mary Kay people and Amway people and Herbalife people coming home at night clicking on that infomercial, buying Think and Grow. That's who was buying the product. We were harvesting other people's customers. We weren't creating any virgins. The show wasn't even designed to create virgins. The science show was designed for Susie, the Mary Kay person, clicking into the show. That's who the show was designed to get from the very beginning. In 28 and a half minutes, you can't convince a virgin they need Think and Grow Rich and self-improvement and success, but you can certainly harvest somebody who already knows who the hell Napoleon Hill is. And, oh, really? There's tapes? Shit, where do I get those, right? And so buy a Pied Piper, somebody who's respected, known, celebrated to your customers, and is basically washed up. Right? They are done. Bring them back out of retirement, trot them around, make them an ambassador, put a fancy coat on them, send them to the trade shows, etc. Be a grave robber. So Barnes & Noble, right, has prospered thanks to the death of Borders, okay, and the death of the independent bookstore. So Barnes & Noble is feeding off of the death of everybody else around them as the last lone survivor. They had a nice sales spike at every Barnes & Noble store as soon as a Borders store closed. Of course, right? Now here's what I don't think they were smart enough to do. I was certainly on all these lists. I never got any communication from Barnes & Noble, any sort of offer acknowledging that you were an orphaned Borders customer. And gee, come on in, and we'll give you X, Y, and Z. Most Borders and Barnes & Noble stores are in communities I would bet you the biggest stake in Texas, Barnes & Noble didn't run any ads in the community newspaper specifically saying, if you mourn the loss of your border store, we understand. Please come to Barnes & Noble and we'll give you a free box of Kleenex and your first 3 books are free. And, come, I don't think they did any of that. So when somebody dies in business, don't matter, local, national, info marketer, dry cleaner, don't make any difference. They orphan people who either have to go get that service somewhere else or emotionally want that connection from someone else. So people sort of generally understand it. In our world, for example, whenever a guru dies, and I mean actually kicks the bucket, you see, it's mostly online, but you see this giant orgy of everybody who claims to have been the person's best friend and mentor and protege all stampeding into the honor site for, and most of them, of course, met the guy once. But they're there because there's a bunch of orphaned customers who are also there, who are loose and are in need of a new paternal figure, and gee, they might pick me. Now, nobody's real smart about it, nobody's real organized about it, but they generally understand it. See, Amazon's much more specific, right? If you like this, you'll probably also like this, right? So nobody did. Man, if you loved Zig as much as I did, you might not know about Bill, but Bill's like Zig on steroids. Here's where to find Bill. No, I don't think anybody really was that tight about it. So I used to teach years ago. Cell phones have sort of ruined it, but not entirely. At the local level, the minute any kind of business went out of business, go get the phone. If you're in that business, get the phone number. The phone company holds it for 3 months and then reassigns it. So dry cleaners goes out of business. You own a dry cleaners, carpet cleaning place goes out of business. Go get every time somebody goes out of business, get their phone number and just line up the phones. Yep, carpet cleaning. Does this Acme? No, but don't matter. Don't matter. Okay, you're in the right place, Martha. I'm under their warranty. Now, you got to be smart. I'm under their warranty plan, and I'm in touch. No problem, Martha. We'll be right out there. We don't honor their warranty plan because they're dead. And we got their phone number, and you got to be smart about it, right? Because it's customer acquisition. So, second thing on our list is reinvention. I'm leaping to page 63. It's not much of a leap. So here's what everybody didn't do. Disney didn't improve the amusement park. Schultz didn't really improve the coffee shop. Buffett bought Geico and didn't set about improving the traditional insurance agency. These activities were not about improvement. They were about replacement. Something really new in the category, something different in the category, a different business model, a different approach, a different environment. Most stop short of it because, again, what everybody's thinking about when they wake up in the morning is growth. How do we get more revenue? How do we get more customers for this thing we already got? That's the box everybody operates in. They don't think about how do we blow up the box. That generally is viewed as an unpleasant thing to contemplate rather than a business development strategy to contemplate. So most everybody just tries to incrementally make things better, more profitable, more lucrative. They don't new model, new approach. So some radical departures. If you look at the next page. So we, of course, have people who've reinvented themselves, most recently Caitlin. Colbert is going to be, the Sports Marketing Association, by the way, figured out that for 36 months from the time he was first on the Wheaties box, he was worth $100 million to him. They project the next 36 months she's worth $500 million plus. So even with inflation adjustments, it's a lot of dough. So you want to put it on your total list of, career strategies if things are just not going well. So radical departures, right? So for Disney, the most radical departure in their business has been booze. Proliferation of booze. So when Walt was alive, there was no booze except what Walt drank. So you couldn't buy, there was no booze. That quickly changed to no booze in the Magic Kingdom, okay? Because that's the kids park. But the other parks are as much for adults as they are for kids. Therefore, we could try a little booze. And we can have it in the high-end restaurants only, and we can see what happens. And not much bad happened. So, okay, we can have it at special occasions. So we can have it at the Food and Wine Festival, because it's called the Food and Wine Festival. So we can have booze there. Let's see what happens if we do that. Okay, we can have it in the World Showcase restaurants, because how do you have a beer garden in Germany with no beer? So we'll let beer be served, not just at night, but all day. We'll see what happens. All right? And gradually, Disney, they're selling booze pretty much every hour they're open, pretty much every place you're at. All right? It's most restricted still in the Magic Kingdom, but there is places in the Magic Kingdom you can get booze. And every place else, pretty much, you can get booze within a few steps here or there. And they tell me their problems are relatively few. Where it has gotten away from them is in places that aren't really Disney. Disney downtown, big problem, which they're fixing, for example. But overall, big departure. Maybe Walt's spinning in his grave, maybe not. I don't know. I doubt it. But been a very profitable, obviously, big departure. Catholic Church, I joked this morning, so big departures for them, starting with the fish thing and the saint thing and on and on and on and on and on. I mean, pretty much all the crap that my first wife believed she was going to go to hell forever. Her mother certainly believed she was going to go to hell forever. That's all it's gone. It's okay now. Guthrie Renker, big departure. Guthrie Renker began as an intellectual property company with infomercials. So we started with Think and Grow Rich, audio tapes, audio CDs, okay? Personal Power 1 with Tony, Weight Loss with Kathy Smith, all IP stuff, all courses, okay? Not in that business at all. They're really a cosmeceutical nutrition company with vertical brands, in part driven by direct response TV. That's really what they are. So radical departure from where they began. And for good reason, by the way, but radical. Vegas, we've seen them, 3 times? One not so smart. They survived it. They're overbuilt for the new one, but, gambling was the 5th source of revenue last year. 5th. Because the millennials, they don't gamble at all. Okay? So the first is clubs. First is nightclubs. It's a city of nightclubs. That's what it is. I'm not sure the economics will support a bunch of 35,000 square foot nightclubs that happen to have a blackjack table over in the corner, but we'll see. But that's where they are. 3 DJs in Vegas last year each made over $1 million. DJs. There's one that made $7.8 million as a DJ in Las Vegas, which is more, incidentally, than Justin Bieber made last year. That's how much a radical departure in that city. Trump, TV, radical departure. So These things are, to be thought about, not feared, considered, and the checklist is right here. So reinvention is about who you are or you are for. Sometimes that's kind of micro. So my Client Scheduling Institute, it's been now 2 years. We don't do any direct marketing at all to female dentists. It's not because he doesn't have some fabulous female docs as clients. Overall, they're better. But statistically, they're infinitely harder to get, and they tend to be cheaper. And they object to some of our best marketing because we use a lot of hot chicks in our marketing. And it offends a bunch of them. So we just eliminated them. And we have upped the ante on the hot chicks. So we are clearly for the male dentist. So that's kind of micro, bigger. Clients who qualify by size of customer, blatantly, openly, and decide, I have a wealth manager who, if you don't have $20 million to put under management, don't bother me. I'm only for people at this level. And so there's the who you are or who you are for. There's what you are going to sell or what you're going to position it to be. Right? So, for example, with Chris, a franchise is just a different way of delivering coaching, done-for-you services, et cetera. It's just bundled together in a different way and compensated in a different way, right? Membership, 5 newsletters, it's a subscription bundled in a different way. So what? How you'll sell it, and we're going to spend a bunch of time on process, and process can be a reinvention. Right? So how much of Allstate's business is now Esurance? What do the two sides look like? Do you know? Small. 3%. What do you think it'll be in 10 years? Okay. So why? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know. I heard him. I know who he is. Yeah. And I think you're dead wrong, by the way. Yeah, I know. But so here's another way to think about it, by the way, just in case you want to be anxious. Okay? Even if you're right, Amazon's getting in the business. And that may be the bigger danger than Esurance to the Allstate agent, maybe by a big margin, right? But regardless, there's now 2 different ways to sell that kind of insurance, right? There's the traditional model is agent finds me or I find an agent and we form a relationship and you come to my house or you come to my office, et cetera. And then there's I can just go do it without you, right? And there's no claims guy because I can take a picture of the fender with my phone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, okay? So take a look at how long it took, but then what it did to the stockbroker. Look at the travel agent, okay? So there's this, how are we going to sell it? Is there an entirely different model for how we sell it? Where you will either sell it or deliver it. So we had a conversation. I don't know if I should. Well, yeah, I will. So Jerry Jones is here somewhere. So, like, Jerry is on the cusp about launching himself as a franchisor, and one of the things that is a big consideration is how much time you got to be on the road running around dealing with franchisees, and it's a big consideration, right? And my contention is you don't have. That's the one thing I don't believe you got to be at all. I think you could keep making them get on airplanes and come to you for training and coaching and fixing and everything else. I don't think you got to go. Okay. On the other hand, the most stable MLM companies that have outlasted the perpetual demise in that industry, right, are one you hardly ever hear of, Forever Living, Amway, Shackley, and Herbalife. Those are now the granddaddies of the industry. Okay? All but Shackley have regional corporate people in the field running around all the time managing the independent distributor network in each market area. So they have a very different where approach than everybody else in their industry. Okay? So where you'll sell it, when you'll sell it or deliver it, right? So fast food industry doubled in size the day they decided to do breakfast. It's only 1 out of 3 meals a day, or if you believe Taco Bell, it's 1 out of 4. But adding it doubled the entire industry in size the year they opened the doors to be in the breakfast business. All right? So that's when do we deliver it. McDonald's is now trying to figure out how to stop their slide here by letting you order breakfast all day long. Because for their entire existence, people have been coming in at 2 o'clock in the afternoon wanting an Egg McMuffin and being told, no. Now that they have had 6 consecutive months of domestic sales declines, the new CEO just said, well, wait a minute. Are you sure we want to say no to everybody that wants to buy a damn Egg McMuffin at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? I'm not sure that makes a lot of sense. Now, it turns out they have a logistical issue, which is really funny. So they're running the tests in like 5 markets, but basically all the restaurants are outfitted with grills so small that it can't accommodate both the daytime menu and the breakfast menu at the same time. So if this thing works, the franchise owners are going to have to refit all their restaurants all across the country in order to do it, but it may still be worth it. IHOP sells you pancakes any time of day you want them. Bob Evans sells you pancakes anytime. If you want pancakes for dinner, you can go to Bob Evans and get pancakes for dinner. And a whole lot of people do. But you can't go to McDonald's and get pancakes at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And somebody has finally said, wait a damn minute. I don't understand why we want to say no to a bunch of people who want to eat pancakes, right? And it's a smart question, especially when you have a sales decline. So there's a when you will sell it, right? There's a tie to premium pricing. Dustin, where are you? Burleson? Run up here and use this mic. Run up here and use this mic if you don't mind. You got short legs. You can run quick. Just run right up there. Make sure the mic's on. Will you run? So tell me about we guarantee you can bring the kid in at dawn or Saturday or
yeah, so I'm an orthodontist. We do braces or Invisalign without missing work or school, guaranteed. They come 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 6 days a week.
And how's that priced versus
competitors?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Our average fee is $6,300, and our nearest competitors are $4,600 to $5,000.
And how much more does it cost you to be playing this game?
The staffing cost is probably an extra 10 to 15%.
So if you can't do that math, that's a lot less than the spread, right? Yeah. And I assume a bunch of people buy it and don't take advantage of it.
The majority.
So there's a lot of breakage.
Exactly.
Yeah. But thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So 7 to 7, we guarantee your kid don't have to miss school or Little League, and you don't have to miss work while we get their teeth straight, right? And we charge $2,000 more for it, and a whole bunch of people don't even ever use the odd hours. That's a change in when, right? Amazon, of course, is trying to make the sea change in when with same-day delivery of all sorts of stuff, right? And their market testing indicates it's a pretty good sea change. Even next day was a pretty good sea change, right? How you'll price it or be compensated for it, right, is another way to reinvent a business. It's since kind of gone away for a variety of reasons, but I was part of the reinvention of chiropractic with prepay. You changed the entire business with prepay. You changed that from being a $30 every time we can get you to come in sale to an $8,000 to $12,000 sale. You do some magical things to people's income in a hurry when you do that. Right? So, Adam, where are you? Whitty, are you in a room? So you just told me you're book author. People, the main package is like almost everybody's prepaying? Yeah, so 40% are just writing a check and prepaying, and the work's stretched out over months. So he has the problem of a ton of cash in the bank. Right? Right? And he's right? So our conversation was, first of all, if 40% are prepaying, the price is too low. Right? So we got to look at price. Right? Secondly, we got to look at what else they buy, because anytime somebody prepays, their next amount of spending is available. Anytime they're paying you in installments, they don't have money to buy another thing from you next month or the month after, because they're still paying you for the thing they bought. You get it? And so prepay, in terms of often total amount of money that you can get from so like the chiros who did really good with prepay with us, they were all in the weight loss business. So as soon as they got the chiropractic thing prepaid, they started to talk to Susie about the $12,000 weight loss program, which she can buy because we already got the $8,000 taken care of. If she was paying $200 a month to come in for her chiropractic care, and you started to talk to her about $12,000 for a weight loss program, and we're going to lay another $200 a month on, she'd dig in her heels and balk. So we created space to sell. So how you compensated. Now, it's important to understand that what's here, and because you might not be able to imagine it, I do it for you. There's 30 different possibilities. There's not 6. Because you Chinese menu this. How do we combine a change in who with a change in how? How do we combine? So you got to think through every which way you might fool with your business with these reinvention strategies. I'll give you an interesting corporate example right now and all the stuff that they're doing. So petmeds.com. Anybody know? Anybody buy from Pet Meds? Gail? It's interesting because you have no pets. No, I know. I'm just being a wise ass. Relax. So petmeds.com is what they sound like. Okay? Their core business is selling prescription medicine that the veterinarian prescribes, and you go get it from Pet Meds, and probably in reality, but at least in theory, you get it for less money than the vet would sell it to you, and you get it delivered right to your door, right? So that's the business. So let me just give you some Pet Meds facts. So first of all, they're 20 years old. So they're not a new company. They spend $46 for every new customer they get, which is up from $42 last year. All right? So their customer acquisition cost is $46. All right? Average order size per transaction has increased from $72 to $76. So they got the order up by $4, each average order. Not a fast-moving industry, but steady. So approximately $4 billion is spent on pet medications each year. That's prescription pet medication. 60% is purchased at the vet's office, 20% at other retail stores, which leaves 12%, $480 million, sold by the internet and mail order. So it's really, at this point, a $480 million business is really what it is, and Pet Meds has 50% of it. Okay? So they're doing $240 million a year is what they're doing. Okay, so they got half that market. Half of a market is so much dominance, there ain't a lot left. Okay? It's going to be very hard to grow that. Some percentage of the people are buying from some other website. They're happy. They like it. The website does a good job. They're buying probably from, if Amazon's not in this business, Amazon will be in this business. They're going to get some. So at 50% of that market, there ain't much growth, right? So their growth is wrenching it away from the vet. That's where the growth is, which is not easy because the vet has a lot of influence and control. So the company has been aggressively branching out into OTC, into over-the-counter medications and supplies and food. Pet food and supplies is a $23 billion market in total sales. Pet meds is a $4 billion market. So much bigger. And you don't need a veterinarian's prescription to buy the OTC stuff. I could convince you to buy trace mineral supplements for the dog, and we don't have to have the vet prescribe it and so forth, right? So they are growing in every one of those categories. They're having some success. They have, since 2009, they brought in 682,000 new customers. They have zero debt. They're sitting on $52 million in cash. Operating profits are running about $27 million a year, and they've been consistent for the last 3 years. But the profits have been shifting from prescription meds to OTC meds, which also have a higher margin. So easier to sell because the vet's not in the way, higher margin. Okay? But front-ending that business might be a giant pain in the ass if you didn't already have the customers that you got. Okay? So they're doing a lot of these kind of things. They're quietly reinventing their business with what they sell, how they sell it, bypass the vet, bypass the prescription, leveraging the customers they already have. That's the kind of thinking you want to engage in reinvention. And they're doing a very nice job of it. Where are we? Where are we supposed to be? 15 minutes. Okay, perfect. We're supposed to be at lunch, but that doesn't matter. So let's have a few detailed things. So let's talk about who first. We'll get this done before we take a break. So when we think about reinventing who you are or who you sell to, first thing is the appropriateness of the customer to you. The value of the customer to you can't be ignored, and most businesses ignore it. They are non-discriminatory. They are democratic. Every customer, every prospect, every lead is the same. I just want more of them. I don't really care who they are. Big mistake. Customers vary in value dramatically, and they vary in all sorts of ways. Geography, where they come from, where they live, whether they go to church on a regular basis or they don't go to church on a regular basis, whether they read or they don't read, whether they're foreign or domestic, what age they are. All sorts of factors filter into how come you guys are better customers than 5,000 other GKIC members. A bunch of them own businesses just like yours. Why is that? It ain't about the business. It ain't about you, and it's about them. So differential customer value is one of the least used points of leverage in all of marketing and all of business. People hate using it because it's complicated and costly and all that. And so often it is not used at all. The second thing about this, who they are, matters a lot. So most of you who have gone through traditional sales training or ever worked in a sales organization got some version of the "it's all your fault" speech. Right? So the W. Clement Stone quote is, "The sale is contingent upon the attitude of the salesperson, not the prospect." In other words, you should be able to close a sale with anybody, and pretty much it's numbers. So 8, 4, 1, whatever the ratios are. And if you're not closing sales, it's you, right? And it's in your head. That's where it is. And so I heard it too, and I believed it briefly, and even got relatively good at, I say I can get a check out of a rock. You know, there are people that can do that. I mean, I wasn't kidding. Ron will have the 50 cockroaches, and they'll all be handing them Bitcoins. That's what will be happening after Armageddon. I mean, we are pretty much good enough. The old, was it Bob Allen's ad? You can drop me in a city with no money, naked, and by the, I mean, we're of that ilk, right? But it's actually kind of an ugly, unpleasant way to go through life. It's very stressful, and it's not true. Certainly, the attitude and the aptitude of the salesperson matter. The persistence of the salesperson matters. But to say that the attitude of the prospect doesn't matter. That said, the reason W. Clement Stone said it is not because he was an idiot. It's because he employed a giant sales force who churned and burned. It didn't matter whether he kept them or not. He really just had a bunch of whip mules, and the way to get more profit and productivity was to whip the mules to plow harder. And when the mule dies, there's another mule to put in its place. It's the same way the Amish farm today. Okay? And it's just as primitive, by the way. So we can forgive Stone, but we don't want to think about our own sales or our own marketing or our salespeople if you employ them in this way. The attitude of the prospect matters too. There are people who are more susceptible at a certain time and less susceptible at other times. For example, I can tell you as absolute fact, if you deliver a skincare pitch to Martha and to 1,000 Marthas that are all fundamentally the same at random times during the year, or you deliver the same pitch to Martha the week of her birthday, to those 1,000 Marthas the weeks of their birthdays, your response rate is higher the weeks of their birthdays. Change nothing else. The logic is obvious. They look in the mirror more, they think about every wrinkle, they contemplate their appearance more at birthday than they do at any other time. All right? So the attitude of the prospect matters. And the attitude of that prospect changes for 5 days roughly out of every year versus 360 days out of every year. So the appropriateness of the prospect you choose to sell to, the behavior of the prospect you choose to sell to. So those of us who sell from the front of the room, sell stuff from the front of the room. So if I'm in a room full of people who aren't there, I mean, they're there, you can see them, but they aren't there. They're inside their doohickeys. And they are whatever they're doing, their body's here, the rest of them is in the doohickey. My numbers are not going to be good, and neither are yours. Because they aren't there. Same people, take all the doohickeys away from them. If you took them all away at the door, like the guns in the old saloon, and they didn't have any, and they either had to go to sleep or they had to pay attention, guess what? Everybody's numbers are going to go up. All right? So that matters. Who they are, their behavior, their attitudes, all that matters. Who you are to them matters. So here, we talked about it earlier. This is very cool. So this is, it's your page 67. This is from Response magazine in March of this year. 5 reasons why Hispanic online behavior increases sales and return on investment. And the most interesting one, they're all interesting because they're all multiplier factors. They're all multiplier factors. But take a look at this one over here. Spanish language media increases all online sales. So this is very weird. Although Hispanics are highly engaged Spanish language TV and radio, when it comes to the web, Hispanics tend to consume content and transact in English. Okay? So, for whatever reason. So here's what's important. If you drive to an English site with Spanish content on Spanish radio or Spanish TV or in Spanish print media, they will buy more at the English site than the English people driven there from English radio. Now, this is a big multiplier factor because you don't have to change the site. Everybody thinks you got to change the site. And in the info business, everybody thinks you got to also change the product. No, all you got to do is change the media. And you multiply the value of the site and you multiply the value of the product. That's big. If that's true, and I have no reason to doubt it, that's huge. And it has to do with a who. It also has to do with who you are to them. See, they now feel you made an effort. You came into their media and you took the time to talk to them in their language. And just for the hell of it, I checked with Guthrie Ranker, and yep, they're running DRTV spots on Telemundo, dubbed over in Spanish, driving to the regular English-speaking site. They haven't changed anything but the front-end media. The next question is, if that's true of Hispanics, is it true of somebody else? I don't know, but it's intriguing. There's other multipliers in here as well. Now often, in this case hardly any, but often, to change the who for the better, to get a higher quality, more valuable lead, prospect, customer, or client, you have to change the front-end economics for the worse. So in order to have better back-end economics, your front-end economics have to take 2 steps backward. Nobody likes this. Okay? I don't often get clients to do it. Some do it, but then relapse. Okay? Because the best front-end economics, the cheapest acquisition cost is like cocaine. It's really hard to break somebody of the lowest acquisition cost, the highest front-end first transaction profit. Very hard. So I have a client 6 months ago. So we had enough time to know it. His average cost of acquisition of a customer is about $300. I aimed at a very particular type of customer. It's called $910 to get him. 3 times in a tick. And he had a fit. I mean a fit. At Barnes, we say he was throwing himself. A horse will do that. You'll have them all harnessed up and they don't want to go, and they'll just throw himself over sideways and lay there with the harness and the cart and the whole thing. Right? It's an unattractive feature, by the way. The cure for it's even less attractive. I won't describe it to you. You would not like it. But I mean, he threw himself. And I said, but wait, we don't know yet. Right? We just know we spent 3 times as much money to put that person in your room as you've been spending to put people in the room. We don't know anything yet other than that, and that out of context in and of itself means nothing. Right? So 6 months later, guess what? The $900 cost of acquisition, customer value, $8,000. $300 cost of acquisition, customer value, $3,000. Right? Furthermore, we got 3 years to go before he loses them. That spread's going to stay where it is. By the time we're done, my prediction is 20,000, 50,000. That's my prediction. He's already relapsing. All right? The financial advisors, if you jack their cost to put somebody in the old people seminar, you know, the evening deal, you know, so the financial advisors put all the old people in a room for 3 hours. They get them in there with steak. They wave steak. The old people come in. And they do. All right? By the way, that really does not work good for like a denture seminar, but it works good for the financial guys. So they wave steak, and the old people come in, and they put up with a 3-hour sales presentation, and they get them to a meeting. If you get them to even spend $50 a head more, which puts 50 people less on an average night in the room than they had, they throw themselves. Even after they see the back-end economics are much better, they relapse because it just breaks their heart to pay X amount of dollars to have this old person in a room. As soon as you take away the steak, by the way, the cost to put them in a room goes up, but you actually have people in a room for the right reason instead of the wrong reason, and that is a dynamic that affects now everything. But people have a very rough time with this. I mean, I've lived with it in countless businesses over countless years, and I admit it's a cash flow issue, by the way. So some people just have a cash flow issue with it, but most people have a visceral, emotional addiction to the cheapest thing that produces the highest numbers, and that's their cocaine, and they can't live without it. I brought years ago in a miracle ear test, intentionally, in a marketing test, we cut the number of appointments coming into the 3 outlets that were part of the test in half because we targeted prospects instead of any old person that can't hear. We jacked up the cost of getting them there, and at the end of the 90 days, on average, they were 3.5 times as profitable in the outlets doing that as doing the regular thing. How long do you think anybody stuck with it? It never rolled out. Nobody would do it. And the test ones who did it quit 3 months later and went back to what they were doing. Because we run a big newspaper ad on a Sunday, and there's 100 people in the place next week. And this we got like 30 people all week long, and we need 100 people. Why? Because we're addicted to 100 people in one newspaper ad. So this who thing is very important. The value of the who is very important. Differential customer value is the least used piece of leverage in most businesses. Hardly anybody uses it. Even primitively, they don't use it. You know, there's a guy who's a friend of mine who owns a restaurant, and his buddy owns 2 custard stands. You know, they're open here only for 7 months out of the year. They draw crowds, right? Low transaction value, but this place at least has an email list. They collect names. They email their customers every week with new flavors and special shit, and there's going to be classic cars on Friday night. And I mean, they do a halfway decent job, right? So he said, "What you got any advice for him?" And of course, you know, it's useless. But I said, "Well, yeah, as long as he's going to the trouble to collect the names." I said, "Give his staff a little piff. Have them separate the list as soon as they get it. Just put a red mark next to one and a green mark next to another so nobody knows what you're doing. But separate the ones that are there with a bunch of kids buying and where it's just Bill stopping by to get a milkshake, and have 2 different lists, right? Because it's more valuable to get the people that got 5 fat kids to come back than it is to get the 1 fat guy, right? I mean, it's just simple math, right? Very simple, right? And, okay, if you're only going to send them email and you still won't send them mail, change the offers, all right? You can make a better offer to the people you know got fat kids than just to the fat person. You can make a better offer because the whole total transaction will be higher when they come back. Now, that's not that hard, is it? You would have thought I suggested, I mean, I don't know. We're going to need mainframe computers, and we got to hire somebody from MIT, and oh my God, the staff won't do it. And what if the green pen runs out of ink? And I mean, you know, but it's everywhere. It's like everywhere. Differential customer value. Think about it in your business. Figure out how to pay attention to it and how to leverage it. We will take a break. We will start back promptly at 3:29. Hurry, hurry, hurry.